What's up, ladies and gents, Noli here, and welcome to another Payday 2 build video. This is my Silent Killer build. It's a support Slayer build with a lot of healing skills and an awful lot of damage utilizing pistols and assault rifles. So, just before we get onto that, so you guys know why the videos are becoming a little more few and far between, I got exams coming up, and last year the way I chose to do this was to actually take like a whole month's break. This time I'm going to try and do maybe 1, 2, 3 videos a week, but spread them out a little more and keep a little time for myself. So that's why videos, streams, everything has not been running as it usually would in the past week or so, and that's how it has to be for about another month. But once that's over, awful lot of free time to work on Payday, and I imagine there are some pretty cool things coming out just around the corner. I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on update 56 in another video this week. I think they've made some great changes, and I think there's certainly something worthy of discussion in there. So let's get onto the build first and foremost, though. As you can see, big investment in Mastermind, but it's very standard at this point. You often see this kind of thing. An interesting pickup there is Kilmer. We'll talk about that in just a second, but as you can see, Combat Medic. I hear people say they're not a huge fan of this skill. It can mess up, that additional 30% health on revive can mess up Berserker, and this being a Deathwish build, let's be honest, is 30% more health going to actually help? Well, I was kind of at a point where I didn't know where to put my points in order to get onto the next tier, and it seems like this may as well be a decent shout, at least to ace, or at least a basic out, I should say. And then acing it out is simply to get the points up to the next rank. Then endurance is very standard on every build. Definitely recommend picking it up. Leadership, we're using pistols, so you're going to want to pick this up anyway. Equilibrium, again, pistol skill, and I like Spotter. It can really help with tasers, shields, and bulldozers, which can be a bit of a nuisance, especially bulldozers on this build to take out. Cloakers, because of their huge headshot multiplier, you'll tear through them, but bulldozers, we've not got a lot of utility to blow those masks off. In fact, on this build I choose to use Molotovs instead of grenades, simply because I find that Molotovs are great for taking out shields and choke points. So that's another reason why you need as much damage against bulldozers as you possibly can. Combat Doctor, that's our chosen utility. We are going to be the revive heal man, and this is the way I chose to take it. Could have gone over here in Fugitive and gone for quick fix and uppers, but I personally, at this moment in time, find that Doctor's bags to be a little more useful on Deathwish especially. Gunslinger. Pistols, this is probably the best pistol skill, so you got to pick this one up. Kilmer as well. The reload speed on my chosen assault rifle, the one that got buffed very recently, the UAR, the AUG. Really cool assault rifle. It got some new attachments and is now very strong, and the only problem really is it's not got the world's fastest reload speed. With Kilmer, no problem at all. Finally, Inspire. Everyone knows this is an amazing skill on every difficulty, especially on Deathwish, when people will, let's be honest, be going down. So you need at least one person, preferably 2 or 3 in your team to carry this, and it fits quite nicely in on this build. Notice not a lot in Enforcer. This is a bit of the this is the downside, I would say, of this build. We've got Transporter, which is as ever very important, but I would love to see a bit of pumping iron in this, stun resistance especially. Other than that, we're not missing out on an awful lot. Some skills up here may be useful, but we were never going to get to them anyway. Now, you'd think I'd invest a little more in Technician. Drill skills are very useful. I'm a fan of Nerves of Steel. And over here we have a couple of assault rifle skills, which I choose not to delve into. I simply feel it's a waste of points. You need the snap to zoom, if you ask me, so you're going to have to invest 2 points in Technician no matter what. But the zoom level, not a huge fan of personally. And as far as being more accurate or stable, of course, this is accuracy with single-shot weapons, which is not what we're running, or not what we're really aiming for with the AUG. You can consider it, but no, I recommend you run it fully auto. And then the stability, don't really need it. It's got ample stability. Ghost, though. Ghost is where we've got some very important and niche skills. These are well-known. This is a well-known variety of a build that we do see. It's just all about finding the right balance of skills that makes it okay for you to invest this much in Ghost and pick up Professional and Silent Killer. And I feel like these two weapons, the Gruber Kurz and the UAR, are two that can work this way. So the Sprinter, as ever, love this skill, always worth picking up on every build. Same with Fast Hands, belongs in every build you make. Chameleon, now I'm going for this simply because I can't get the ridiculous amount of dodge you can with Fugitive because I can't really get Sneaky Bastard in. So by picking up Chameleon and by running the Rogue perk deck, you have a pretty decent amount of wiggle room, I would say, wherein you'll not be targeted. Instead, the AI or your allies will be. And you just got to hope those guys either are running the full dodge skills or they're heavily armored. So it's a bit of a playoff. I'm not a huge fan of this choice, but it feels like the best option to try and keep myself alive on Deathwish difficulty and try and do as much damage from behind. So martial arts, it's really my way to push up into these skills. I really like melee weapons, and even though I'm not going to get the damage that we could get from pumping iron, with martial arts we can choose a knockdown melee weapon. I choose Clovis Shillelagh, and that's the way we choose to run it. Finally, Shinobi. Because we do have the duck and cover skill, I like to be able to move around a little faster while crouching. Now then, Silent Killer. This is interesting. This is where we get our damage multipliers for running silencers on our primary and secondary. Right now, that's 15 plus another 15 and a 15% chance to pierce. That's with the 12 points you get from fully acing out Silent Killer. Then Professional. It's going to give you even faster snap to zoom, which is crazy. I'm a huge fan of that. And more stability, 50% is an awful lot. And then more accuracy and the further 15% chance to pierce enemy armor. So overall, we're getting just over 30% damage. I'm pretty sure these damages apply on top of each other, so you get your 15 and then you get a 15 on that increased number. I'm not entirely sure how the damage calculation actually works, but it's only going to make 1 or 2 points of damage difference anyway. And then similarly, around about 30% chance to pierce, which is pretty good on Deathwish when you're running up against a lot of heavily armored enemies. Finally, Fugitive, we've got a couple of points to fit in. I like the movement speed being unhindered when using the steel sight, so we're going to get up here with run and gun, plus the additional movement speed. Thick Skin, I know we ace this out simply to get that ballistic vest, which we're not even running. We're running suit on this build. But what's worthy of note is if we weren't just to waste this out, if we would try and spread points a little more thinly, get Daredevil, because that actually does something for us, we first of all wouldn't be able to get that additional steadiness, and also we wouldn't be able to fully ace out one of these two up here, which are considerably more important. So that's duck and cover fully aced out and run and gun. So those are the skills. It's a pretty mismatched build right now. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but when you get into game, it is very, very strong. Most importantly, because we have Rogue. I've always said dodge is probably the most overpowered thing in the game. I still believe that. I definitely think that the armor should be buffed in one way or another and pinned up to the same kind of level. But no, as of right now, I don't see any reason to not run a dodge build. So subtle, helmet popping as ever. Elusive is going to give you that additional 15% chance to not be targeted. Then we got blending in, of course. Evasive, more dodge. More dodge. And then here we go. This is actually quite important. Another 25% chance to pierce. That's roughly 55% overall to pierce enemy armor. And then the time between swapping weapons makes this build that bit more versatile. Rogue is such a powerful perk deck. I really can't argue any other perk deck up against it. I just don't think they compare at all. But there we go. That is the build skill and perk wise. Let's take a look at the weapons. I've already told you. It's the UAR, a recently buffed weapon. Its base stats were not changed at all, but its modified stats definitely were. So as you can see, mag size 30, pretty standard for an assault rifle. It does not have any extended mag attachments, sadly. Total ammo 120, that's also very, very standard. Not too great, but it has decent ammo pickups, so you don't have to worry about that. Rate of fire, 750 is good. Now we have a lot of damage here. So base 28 damage. We bring this thing up all the way to 51, which is way above what people consider necessary. I hear this a lot. Please try and spread your skills around a little nicer to try and sort out your accuracy and stability. Well, this thing has 24 accuracy and 50 stability, so I don't think we need to worry too much. There is one way you can build this to get a little more accuracy and drop, well, I would say, quite unnecessary points in stability. But the way I like to run it is like this. 51 damage, 24 accuracy, and 50 stability. Very, very strong numbers there. I don't think you can deny nearly doubling accuracy, nearly doubling damage, and considerably more than doubling that stability. Look at these skill multipliers. These are huge. Now, I always like to aim around 40 damage. That's 10 more than I need. That is because of headshot multipliers, but I do find 50 on this weapon can be helpful. You're going to be working your bullet penetration, your chance to pierce as well, so you may be shooting for those meat shots and just trying to work around the fact you got those additional points of damage, especially on Deathwish difficulty. I don't think these are wasted at all. Secondary weapon, the all-important Gruber Kurtz. This is really my primary. I'm going to use this a lot more than the UAR. I kind of whip the UAR out in more dangerous situations, but the Gruber Kurtz is more than viable on every single difficulty. You're going to be taking out most enemies with 1 to 2 shots in the head. It's a very accurate weapon, 29 accuracy, and as you can see again, this thing has ridiculous stats. Very, very impressive rate of fire, great ammo count, really. Mag size is, again, its only downside, but the reload times are so fast. Damage crazy. 47. Again, that's probably slightly more than you need. Accuracy, 29. Stability, 47. Just such high stats. You don't see this on most builds. I know you guys like moderation. You like things to hit those right numbers. But with Silent Killer, the way you're aiming to build it is just to work off ridiculous multipliers. Very much the same way the minigun build was. And think about all this damage you've got sitting in your backpack. And you've also got the ability to use Inspire and Revive, you've got Medic Kits, so this really is one of my more powerful builds. I personally don't think it is quite as good as the minigun build. I actually think the minigun build's a bit overpowered right now, and it's not working the way I think Overkill necessarily intended it to, but this is very much so like a top tier build, that if you're sitting at level 100 as I am, and want to try out, I definitely recommend. As I've already said, Clovis Shillelagh is my melee weapon of choice. Get that ridiculously high base knockdown. 210 is very, very strong for that. Grenades, I've already mentioned. Molotovs help me take out shields. As I've said, this build has one weakness really, that's taking out shields, and that is taking out bulldozers. There's no real utility in it in that sense, so we pick Molotovs for that reason. Armor, I've already said, we got to run at the 2-piece, got to get as much dodge as possible. It's not quite as good as we've seen on other dodge builds, and that is another small downside to this build. We really would like to get that concealment down as low as possible, maybe, but I think that may jeopardize the ridiculous damage numbers we've got on our weapons, and also, there just aren't enough skills to get all the way to the top of Fugitive. Equipment, I've already said. Doctor Bag, that is the build. Let's move on to some gameplay. Okay, so I'm going to show you almost a full round of Hotston Breakout Day 2 to try and showcase this build. It's a great heist not only for leveling up, but also for playing that Slayer support role, which I am doing my best to try and showcase in this build. You'll notice lots of long sight lines. You can make use of the very high accuracy stability stats that you're going to get when you build this weapon, the UAR and the Gruber Kurtz, the way that I have. But to a similar extent, it's going to showcase the real downsides, because it can't deal with bulldozers at all. It's a joke compared to the minigun. And shields as well, I just find myself having to kite them around, ignore them, either have to swap to the UAR or let my teammates deal with them. You can already see that, you know, it's going to take a fair few bullets into the faceplate to do anything about bulldozers. This build, though, is still very strong. I always try and compete with myself. I try and record my kill numbers in about 15 minutes on Hotston Breakout, and this is one of the best Slayer builds. Not only can you take enemies out from great range, but it's also that one-shot headshot to the most green enemies, which is sort of the point you're aiming for on the vast majority of builds. And you can see most of the time I can focus the Gruber Kurtz without having to worry. My ammo capacity will be always full despite not using fully loaded. Just working off the perk deck, bonuses, and just the fact that the UAR and the Gruber Kurtz have good ammo pickup and kill very, very quickly with the great damage we have on this build. As far as attachments are concerned, you're going to want to try and maximize that damage to utilize that crazy multiplier potential. But similarly with accuracy and stability, seeing as how we've got 50% buffs to both of those, you're going to try and want to get as many skills as high as possible. Drop down that concealment, drop down threat. They really don't matter an awful lot on this build at all. And then as far as the silencers you're choosing are concerned, there are some that really don't decrease damage at all and do give you small bonuses to accuracy and stability, so do aim for those in particular. That's it for the build. I'm not going to talk about this much more. I feel like I can't really... don't want to overdo it. Instead, let's change the topic. Let's talk about a couple of interesting things. I'm going to try and dedicate a full video to update 56 when it comes out, but right now it is in beta. I'm going to link it in the description where to pick it up, how to download it. It's quite simple to do. You just have to jump into the properties of the game, and then you're going to have access to update 56 as it stands. It's an update that I think is going to go through quite a few changes before we get in full release. How great is it that Payday is running these betas? It's by no means a fresh, original idea to run betas on your updates to make sure that they don't kind of pollute the game. But it's so important when you're doing something like messing around with a pretty long-used experience system. It has to be refined in the right way so that people can't just take off in levels or just not have a very satisfying experience at all, not leveling up. So the way the experience system is changing, as I said, I'm going to go into this in more detail when it's finalized, but you basically are going to have you're going to receive experience when you complete objectives. It's going to be very similar to the Payday the Heist style, not exactly the same, but it's going to mean that missions like Hotstone Breakout, Shadow Raid are not going to be quite as ridiculously over-rewarding, so it's going to influence more variety of missions. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't know whether different members of the team are going to receive different amounts of experience depending on the kind of role they play. I don't imagine that's the way it's going to go down. But if Overkill really try and refine this in the right way, they can try and reward certain player styles with certain rewards. And I think that could be an impressive way of getting this new experience system across and making it very popular amongst the community. I'd be a huge fan of that. Beyond that, though, Update 55 did not contain the additional infamy update that Almir promised, but update 56 looks like it will. Not going to talk about that too much right now, but it's great to see some additions to the infamy system, because as of right now, the masks are brilliant. But I've picked up my two favourite masks already. I'm at Infamy 9 100. For myself, who wants to stay at as high a level as possible to make entertaining videos, good gameplay, get these builds out, I don't see much incentive to go Infamous other than maybe to showcase those masks in Mask of the Day. But with these Infamy rewards, with there being a reason to go Infamous, especially having them class-based and based around your playstyle, Overkill is making great steps in the right direction to make the Infamy system more entertaining, especially now that Double Experience is off and it's not easy just to go Infamous every single day. It's more of a deliberate decision you have to make for yourself, and so it's definitely pushing me to go into Infamous 10 right now. But other than that, the update's made some amazing fixes, amazingly important fixes as well, stuff that even I wasn't aware of, but make a huge difference. And I think it's really going to bring up the PC quality with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 quality when, of course, the big Crime Wave edition is released. Now, that's enough of that. As I've said, I'm going to talk about that in greater detail when it comes closer to the actual Update 56 release date and when we get the finalized version. Do check out the beta. It's very easy to download. Be careful with your save data. Keep an eye on tutorials you'll find on the Steam community pages. I would not want to see anyone losing their save data on account of me asking you to check out the beta. But of course, give your feedback on either the Payday Reddit. I know they pay attention over there. And of course, the Steam community forums. There's some great dialogue going on right now talking about how to improve it, what's great, what's not so hot, and if you guys want to add to that, again, link in the description below where you can get the information on how to grab the beta. So, one last final topic of conversation while you're hopefully enjoying this gameplay and showcasing the pretty crazy kill potential of this build. Steam Community Workshop. I'm going to first of all talk about how paid mods. Everyone and their mother seems to be talking about this right now. Steam doesn't seem to be making the right, or Valve I should say, are not making the right decisions, if you ask me necessarily, about how to go about rewarding the mod makers. But what they are doing is allowing for certain mods that sort of surpass a green light standard can go on the Steam Workshop and be paid for. Now, the way I hope it's incredibly important that not only Valve get this right, but also mod makers get this right. We still need to see free versions of mods. I'd hate to see this becoming a money grab opportunity. One great example, Midas Magic, one of my favourite mods, really improves the magic system, makes a great deal of difference to the game experience if you choose to play a mage. If you ask me, it's essential. What we need to see is a sort of base version of the mods, the mod that still contains a lot of them over on the Nexus, that's still worth using, that's still going to give you a taste of the mod, working very similarly to a beta. And then we have the paid version, which contains even better, more refined, looks like it belongs in the game. That's the way I hope it's done. That's the way I hope mod makers treat it. And then you can charge £4 for the mod because it's an incredibly well designed, well thought out mod. It belongs in the game. You may as well be a Bethesda developer if you ask me. If you're creating quality that is that good, it works just like a Payday 2 DLC. But one of the problems that I've heard is that Valve is taking large sections of the profit that these mod makers are receiving. Not a huge fan of that. I think Valve has to be careful on what they choose to take. If you ask me, because these mods are a huge pull to actually purchasing the game, I bet Skyrim would not have shifted nearly as many copies recently as it has, if not for the amazing mod support. Similarly, to an extent, probably with Payday. Why does Valve have to charge on this, or why do they have to charge exuberant amounts to the mod creators? I understand Valve taking a small share in a similar way they do on the Valve, what's it called, the marketplace, but I'd love to see them give a little more to the mod creators and understand that it's them that, to some extent, are making these games so successful and selling so well on their platform. Now, with Payday, we've got great mod support. There are some fantastic mods. What springs to mind? Hot's Hood, Poco Hood, maybe some of the graphical changes you get with like the Hollywood edition. What else? Goon mod. Goon mod makes huge differences. Now, if they were to work alongside Overkill to refine these mods, first of all, we don't know whether what workshop is confirmed for Payday. It should be. I know they'd like it to be. There are a couple of issues one way or another with how the system works. It won't be as seamless, especially it being a multiplayer game, as Skyrim. And especially a multiplayer game that has an incredibly active community that is quite anti-cheater. Even though cheating does exist within Payday, I know a large section of the community is very hostile to it, which is probably a good thing. And for that reason, Overkill and Valve and Steam have to be cautious with how they choose to implement the workshop. But if the workshop were to come out, I certainly think there are a couple of candidates for paid mods in Payday. Let's take, for example, Goon mod, which adds a feature that I think maybe Overkill could have added themselves. The ability to customize your weapons to add skins that from the already in-game materials and patterns that they've added themselves. This is a huge improvement, if you ask me, on the Payday experience. And that's what Goon mod offers for free right now. Now, I think as it stands, it probably should be free. But if they were to make some more improvements, if they were to work alongside Overkill, if Overkill were to fully endorse it, we could see an amazing mod. And then I think that the makers, alongside Overkill, with their go-ahead, could have a right to charge for it. And that is potentially the way that Payday modding could go if things were to fall in place, work the right way, and then we could have, well, Overkill could work on Payday 3. Fingers crossed, eventually. We could have a game driven entirely by its incredibly strong community of mod makers. That's the way I could see the game going, and no longer can you complain at your £4 DLCs. Instead, you're loving the community made 50 pence DLCs. And I definitely think there's potential for that if things were to go the right way. If this marketplace decision was to work out for Valve, I'd like Payday to at least pay some heed to it. Anyway, that's it for the video. A couple of discussion points to talk about in the comment section below. I know I moved away from the build, which is one of my personal favourites. As I've said, it's top tier all around. May not be overpowered in the same way the minigun was, but very all-around powerful and works well on every single difficulty. And it's a really satisfying build, hitting those crazy high damage numbers. Thanks a lot for watching. See you all in the next one.
Hey, Wick, come with me. I got the taser. Taser.